be kind unico, but yentimi entra de bia. So there one day somebody must take over.
Yeah.
The most important thing is I believe so be a mayor juma be am pese me ja footprint.
Yeah.
I've worked with Hello FM, and to date obi and me prepare the memories.
Yeah.
Or Hello FM. I worked with Love FM. Maybe Love FM was my beginning point. Until one of my me and drafted BBR.
Yeah.
But Hello FM me free one me jaomo Saturday akokwa bon.
Wow.
Yes. Then
and it's still there.
It's still there. Yeah. Multimedia with Asempa Mekono me jaomo kukrantumi.
Yeah.
Omo the brande omo kakra. And when him kukrantumi, it's so funny how I got the name. Now my name is boss Jimmy Agla. He's now the general manager for Love FM and Insha FM.
Yeah.
If you come say be snack ko near Accra.
Yeah.
Tie fa Satan ye ba ye fa Koforidia. Na you wura abosom dan bi mu. Kwame. Pienu na ni pa se wo dem so wo dem bradi nyankopɔ gigamambu na me boss say kwana no me na mbusa say boss ɛyin fa ne adui no see kokura ntumi na me say we di okukura wuntumi ɛna ɔsrɛ so ye dura Accra no so kwasi twum say Saturday anopa no munye na mumpedin bi na ye na so no let's use kokura ntumi no say yes baby ye jina na say baby e kwa bosom dem no na me nko okuro no so da ba na say ye visit shrine bi ti kakra bi duro no ye hu bosom dan ba ko na me ka chen so o mi nwuram na ye hwɛ ade kura wo dan no ti nwuram no na no so asim konwa
etwen
na no asim konwa na why abotatwe da yeso ye di aguro no ejina mu oho ti akonfo koma ene eni pe free won na che say yes dija data to pa ni pa di free wo to mo ayeba so that's how Kokran to me with Citizen Show. I can't remember when Elijah Gongo me kasa putting a name to a show was a little bit difficult, but it was to me no kwawia.
Yeah.
Na so kwabosum dem sa
and I was nyama who
see asum na no.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I said I said and I said the Rebecca.
What do we share Radinsa?
And Rebecca.
Me Busao. And next said your Bonia baby, as you don't be share
Radinsa. 7 with the 7 family will share Radinsa. And
not don't be share Radinsa. And they say, very good. Watch it. No more mobile. So, me no Korea, then I'm catching Korea. I say, So we talk about citizens, but the citizens, they don't have a show.
Yeah.
Any coin show names at the Koma, but the citizens also needs to own a show. So this show is the citizen show. We kind of we are three and was yeah. And I'm drafting and I'm just sending Elijah Gongo. Then the boss knows didn't come on, let's go. And your parents were Eddie Abedra. So I know that definitely me aduma me free her one day I wish to stay here and I want to retire here.
Yeah.
Oh, to be honest, I want to retire here. I want to retire with CMG. But I know that me free I say na my another footprint.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kwame.
Thank you, Commander.
We are grateful.
Sure.
All right, so that's it live on Accra100.5 Citizen Show. Mama menya me miliki kakra emra mesremo away bas. Thank you so much.
I mentioned earlier that I began my second non-consecutive term as president this past January. My first term ended in January 2017. In that span of time, 8 years, the world has changed with such ferocity My first days in office after my return felt as though I had just awakened from a Rip Van Winkle-style sleep. Now, no, that was only after 8 years. Imagine then what it will be like after 80 years since the founding of the United Nations. In 1945, the sun had not yet set on the largest empire in history. The most common mode of international travel was by sea. The personal computer had not been invented, let alone made portable. And television, a new convenience, was still in its infancy, albeit in black and white color. Relations between the US and the Soviet Union were turning frosty, with Winston Churchill declaring that an iron curtain has descended across the European continent. Fast track 80 years on, in today's world, hundreds of thousands of commercial flights take off and land every day. Libraries have been digitized so that volumes of literature can exist on a small device enough to fit inside your pocket. We live in a world of cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, social media, the internet and its dark hidden dungeon of the dark web, all of which carry a potential threat to global peace and security. Climate change is real, and we're fighting a losing battle against the loss of Maldives and other island nations to the rising sea level, against the loss of Timbuktu to desertification and the Amazon forest to global warming and deforestation. Madam President, the UN Founding Charter is outdated when it comes to representation in this August Assembly. The most powerful post-World War II nations are still being rewarded with an almost totalitarian guardianship over the rest of the world. And yet, the first sentence in Chapter 2, Article 1 of the UN Charter declares that the organization is based on the principle of sovereign equality of all its members. If this were true, and was the case, a continent as large as Africa, with its numerous UN member states, would have at least one permanent seat on the Security Council. Furthermore, we believe that veto power should not be restricted to only 5 nations, nor should it be absolute. There must be a mechanism in this House for the General Assembly to challenge a veto. No single nation should be able to exercise an absolute veto to serve its own interests in a dispute. In 1995, during the 50th anniversary of the United Nations, Nelson Mandela stood in this very spot, and he said, "The United Nations has to reassess its role, redefine its profile, and reshape its structures. It should truly reflect the diversity of our universe and ensure equity among the nations in the exercise of power within the system of international relations in general and the Security Council in particular." I close quotations. 30 years later, we African leaders are still making the same simple request for a permanent seat on the Security Council with the power of a veto. So today, Madam President, I stand here in this exact spot and ask the world, if not now, then when? We demand not only a reform of the Security Council, but also a reset of the global financial architecture, which is currently rigged against Africa. Africa must have a greater say in the world's multilateral financial institutions. And while I'm making requests, I'd like to call for the removal of the blockade on Cuba. As Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, our nation's founder, famously said, "We seek to be friends with all and enemies to none." The Cuban people shed their blood on African soil in the fight against apartheid. And indeed, Cuba has been and continues to be a faithful friend of Africa. You see, the very fact that I can stand here and ask these things and say these things, and the fact that all nations can ostensibly gather here to address critical global issues, air our grievances, and express our concerns, that is what makes the survival of this organization so important. In every old city or village, you will find a town square, or a courtyard, or a plaza that once served as a gathering space for the citizens of the community and their leaders. Meetings and celebrations were held there, as were trials and elections. And these were spaces that brought people together and held them together as a community. Sadly, time and technology have eroded these spaces. Madam President, in many ways, the United Nations is the proverbial town square of our modern global village. And it has never been more critical for us to protect this one space that brings and holds the world nations together as a community. The internet, social media platforms, and artificial intelligence offer us the illusion of connectivity, when in fact what they do is reinforce isolation by using algorithms that ensure that we do not receive new ideas and perspectives, but rather more of the same content. We are served alternative facts and manipulated images, making it easy to disseminate disinformation and sow seeds of division amongst communities. Madam President, these are dangerous times. Our world is currently experiencing a rise in nationalism and economic instability. There's a general breakdown of multilateralism. Various acts of aggression have been committed against the sovereignty of others, and nations are attempting to circumvent the very safeguards that were put in place to prevent large-scale global conflict. These conditions are all too similar to the ones that led to the League of Nations' failure in fulfilling its mandate. The denial of visas to President Abbas and the Palestinian delegation sets a bad precedent and should be deeply worrying to all member nations of the United Nations. Ghana recognized the state of Palestine in 1988 and supported a two-state solution to the conflict since then. And I say, contrary to the claims of some, a two-state solution would not be a reward for Hamas. It would rather be a reprieve for the hundreds of thousands of innocent women and children and people who are facing collective punishment and forced starvation for no reason other than the fact that they are Palestinian. For nearly 2 years and for the fear of reprisals, we here in this General Assembly have been playing hide and seek with language to find the right words to help us avoid or excuse what we all know is taking place in Gaza. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter what you call it. If it looks like a duck, it swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, well, then it must be a duck. The crimes in Gaza must stop. The crimes in Gaza must stop. Madam President, I also want to draw particular attention to the conflict in Sudan, which this body has described as the world's largest humanitarian crisis. 12 million people have had to flee their homes. And when we speak of migration, we refer to the 12 million new Sudanese refugees, whom we as a global community should be willing to assist in much the same way that many member nations readily assisted new refugees coming out of Ukraine. Let's dispense with the euphemisms and dog whistles and speak frankly. It is not a mystery that when leaders of Western nations complain of their migration problems, they are often referring to immigrants from the global south. But many of those immigrants are climate refugees. And interestingly, the global north emits 75% more greenhouse gases than the global south. However, the effects of climate change are more severe in the global south because we lack the resources to address them effectively. And so when the desert encroaches on our villages and towns and they become unlivable, we are forced to flee. Ansah Shire, a Somali-born prophet, a Somali-British poet born in Kenya to Somalian refugee parents, was London's first youth poet laureate. She writes in her poem titled Home. And it says, you have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. No one bends their palms under trains beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck feeding on newspaper unless the miles traveled mean something more than just a journey. Madam President, We cannot normalize cruelty. We cannot normalize hatred. We cannot normalize xenophobia and racism. If we're going to tell a story, let's not tell it slant. Let's tell all the truth. When we speak of migrants, we speak of Mami Ewusi Mensah Frimpong, a judge on the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. She's the first black female judge on any of California's 4 federal district courts. She was born here in America to immigrant parents from Ghana. We speak of Peter Bosman, a medical doctor in Ghana who moved to the town of Piran in Slovenia in the 1980s and later became the first black mayor of Piran, the first black mayor in Slovenia and in the whole of Eastern Europe. We speak of T. Michael, the iconic Ghanaian Norwegian artist and designer. And of course, we speak of the late Kofi Annan, former United Nations Secretary General. Former United Nations Secretary General and Nobel Peace Prize recipient, who was born in Ghana but spent his adulthood in various places in America and Europe. These are people who have brought great distinction to the countries that they decided to call home. Just as the migrants and the children of migrants before them did, I dare say these are not invaders. These are not criminals. Madam President, the slave trade must be recognized as the greatest crime against humanity. As the African champion on reparations, Ghana intends to introduce a motion in this August body to that effect. More than 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken against their will and transported to create wealth for the powerful Western nations. We must demand reparations for the enslavement of our people and the colonization of our land that resulted in the theft of our natural resources. As well as
the just 30 minutes na way. So Paite, have a seat, quick one. Paite, you know I Juma Kakra, so citizenship and then the 7th year. What do you have to say?
In fact, the kind of you better tell them for Yankupasi, Pempensua, Odien Abedu, na Mada Commander Wankasanso Ase. And I feel so a branch of Kusampa. In fact, opportunity no buy say, Mimbesia idea our citizenship, you know. Otiasie, Emma, Minya, that opportunity, and I must say, me journey citizenship production, no Masia and Yama Baby. Pressure, me call me second time, and I come in you, and I come in.
And that number is about 2 dear crowd. That was me pra.
Because, in fact, my dear Bakoma say, Commander, production, I'm a Messiah, dear brain.
You need to.
As I say, and I don't know because Commander showed you 10 years, my own to me. So I just thank God, say, answer wow space where you feel comfortable so I had them okay, but once you give yourself the opportunity to challenge yourself, no one say what's the idea so but once I'll be open up, say you want to encounter more challenges, you know, the more you become very experienced in tea. But that's a pass say opportunities so
Juma.
Yeah.
And there be no Juma you learn more.
Sure.
You see, a bit of me biaba.
Yeah.
So who can crank a cra?
Commander.
What do you cry?
Send me a channel. Why me tell me few.
You see, Mukwaba Mukwaya.
Okay.
Obi biaba. So, sana etie. Yes, you das. Say unya show mujidi obe join the citizen show ni dia so no nkran no na mo amfra Eugene ba manama show double show double. Now, Commander, Minda Kwame Kwatiasi. Good. In fact, easy. So, on go to me pressure, no, TSO Bajibi.
Oh, president they said you are not normal. So I normal. Na make first day na kwa me friend say paite eduma bi edi nyako hye bi ntinu. The can was studio. Commander me gina esi asere me team fifiri. Allah. Me say adano kwa me nka to ntwede. Me de fa na paite dia fa me de fa na me say paite. Ube wani say me no ye carpet so da. Na me run commander man is so say relax. Relax. Afi de me hu say ade no. Paite yes sir. No me say baby a paite do no say me man kan je so nto no bo a. Me tia no amina hwe. But I just thank God say it's a very for the camera no twem mam na me ya me media to. Wow. Media to me Facebook. Manager boko there. Wow. Good. And then yam say oh, Mumra Citizen Show at 7. Namia you be. No, you should join us manager. Come on. Oh, Mon join us. Oh, yeah. Any Frank enjoying here? Apostle. Oh, Bray. Apostle Tranche. Apostle, and then he had 7 years. Commander Utinkwa. Apostle, not what do you say? 10 years, na best year, Jumano. Hey, Dabio, now make a who show no. Oh, 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. And then want to move for me. But Commander Nyankupo Nshirao. What brim? Oh, what brim? And yet better. Akonya na otesono. Ewie na make say. Eno so na metna Kenya me say but ebo two corner. Na to me bi otena so to me bi be wura mu a. Me kura ebo two na me da so ti akonya no so a. E ana. Eni am ya ye. So for person can say so for you. So nya me to me a room so I say anti why are there up and down ekukuhwe ase Commander Utinkwa ye bo awrade mpa say awrade na bi kura mu na we do na so na no to join na Commander and then guess on that now say I futie ya di 7 years o e bi da bi achi apanso wura enti wotira mu a na yesu yesua enti ni bona manager de obeka bi yete anamo no ya tena so na Citizen Show there men kan hwehwa class media group but any political signature show owo maim minji ni se ba ho in terms of show ya hoden obetimi na agina brand men kan to ye ho because show we ye show ye kan send ye tie devoid of fear, devoid of favor. Sebi ye me yetimi kire baby aye to ya bako no nipa ko ni wini wi a wanyere yasen atwabon. How many journalists have that kind of flair? Some catch say be tuma say be ye man kasa be say no na make to say ready a dabi obi abeka na dwira kire ba na ya busua adwapade na be say na wura no say no aka betoy dabi it yes so hwe so yi na so de je nchirima dabi na emumbu nyina kwakohwe anamampa o shase na imu bi nso etietia sa anamonu na minim say a shape the political focus of our country. Sure. Ama emabru na eba sesia no bibiri na hunu say etoda ye kasa boana ye kasa nenye pempi no etwasa ubabonten na wo ka no kure no se nete ene betimi aboa na asese oman no ani onyam enkoma ekoso na nyina mitie but baby a me hunu say ebia ese ye ka because we Citizen Show we any other show and a Citizen Show no e want a line. It is so be better so be intiaso de kra na be catch no mind no nkoyi at a point. Na otie chiri na wo hwe se ne o mind ne kwana so yen century ni na wo so mpanyimfo neutrality o maka chiro no betia o mind bebo we defy the odds
of even station authorities stood on our grounds respectfully.
But send this if we are to send every for we are sure be sure woman.
They be say and citizen show you different. Citizen show citizen show and this for dia. Citizen show no kreka for dia. Oman for ne dia. Citizen show dwumadie bi a ye de esi wonom say won wa eni akama for no. Ye fa dwumadie so na yakama om. But me ka kwakowie say wo hwe a certain direction na oman na ekọ. True citizen show. Yetimi or many see hon moi. Me who say a scorecard that ye can in a may rainfish our scorecard. Na enya so dian so ma abambi or so in this case NDC. Say senia and adri here no. Sana na for it is so
my only woman
Ghana work and pay Emma John Dramani Mahama. And a yenya Ghana will Emma any other political party. It will be beer or person or Jenny Niaman. One in such a way say, and you're on the Ghana. Congratulations.
Thank you. Your marketing department and head of your marketing department, a friend is a power. There be power no minimum no. Mona mukwa bonti. Mona mukwa bonti. So Vanessa, tell us, and 7 years for the citizen show.
7 years. I congratulations.
Amen.
Congratulations. Amen. I think sir, why a good job. Bobie, me know dey from Asempa. Entido.
But that's us more much.
Your team be fine. Yeah. And all I can say is congratulations.
Oh,
you've done a good job.
Thank you. Mr. Frank, I am say Obeli Diana. Penifo Warina, Yatra cake in Munafidi Aqua show. Where they yenito. Abna Mama boy, come away. Oh, Coco Boa.
Or so for the son and with Something else I'm just Kwabena. Almost so for saying and no mommy joining. Hey, Commander, and two almost Commander. That picture you need to reply.
No, Mimi was say on Befrain. Hey, Pacho, for him now to so. Hey, Agway Muntumbo. Pacho be mu ndo fako from no money umra into kowachi
e cake yi
oh I did
ye cake yi mu ama
o boy je o money mu
ene ne nkoso ene timamfo ye die ene ne nkoso e wo nyame agya oba ene sunsun kronkron die mu amen.
Thank you. Pacho champagne munya na afide we no omo fa nkoko twani. Mr. Frank, thank you so much. Vanessa, Pacho to anoga krana Mr. Frank and Kevin hwe na afide yemfa emra awie yemfa dia kano entwaso. Mr. Frank, listen to us watch here.
Mate, me jeno so far.
You need to watch here.
Kashen senche.
Me catch also wafe no. Me catch no. Okay, all right. So, hey, I chim for a champion sutu. Thank you. All right, you don't mean I say. Kwabena Pacho, mbetimi ni Mr. Frank from the corner. Me dibia sembeba. Me dibia nyi. All right, thank you. Live on Accra100.5 Citizen Show. Pamcho me kwaba me ba ye baba be share juma say na we na no to e wo ha say and we have a lot to talk about today. Nana
Commander,
minim say what pick is issue ya. Your friend is say Pacho we need free mama feedback. Yeah, you free. Okay, so we need to say Japa, Mr. Richard Japa, or the Odame, Godfred Odame, former Attorney General, or the no CID. so I'm investigating on. And I think I've seen a counter petition. Since I investigated Japa and your friend is a Unicolindi and so. I don't know whether you have any idea.
You could give us some more background.
So the issue about Mr. Richard Japa, a petition on 2 issues. Okay. That the then Attorney General no say onintro.
Okay.
And fanfa ato forcing ho no munya kwai enjeli no.
That's right.
And 2 what the akukutrisem any emimsem any the Attorney General no. These are the 2 issues. Lex original so wait me about say I think mama feedback do. Na omujina so or the the counter petition no petition announce no ono so na dia no the and say CID investigate Yoni Kolindi and a friend is saying Mr. Richard Japa because omomienu so connive to blackmail the Attorney General. So these are the issues. I don't know whether you have any idea.
Commander, you see some issues be her. And me say me briefly. Yes, I'm not into the issues, but you don't need even to have proper understanding of the matter. You say abuano aya na ho bi na etwa. Na dia dance here. Na minim say bi enkomotwetwe me yekoye nim no. Ye ba kodru ba bi a otu da akoho be ye hi ena wiei e wo ne nsem ka ho fa NDC wona namono a utu. In fact me can NDC a na mabrawo me nka say the government machinery because enso ye eda NDC say amanyuku any aban no a erulia owura John Dramani Mahama eda no which has to do with sodia etwasanka was sode na akronfo bi emimfo bi pesaminkumnya fo bi atutrafo bi abutufo bi kawana no tum nanso wom so modum trademark ye father for all inti ebimu enya tumi kasa wo mai. And one of the cases linke to nyawaka ho asemi people like Dame enye so timinya that kind of authority after saying you capture no on a tape commander utiebi mitiebi producers are wearing TV. In fact one when ne Accra100.5FM yeduma citizen show in particular ebe who say there was a tape not then Attorney General Eda da Owura Japa openly say unko twan trose woyade near to court asem asheda anase aboa okwen bi so. This is enough grounds to prosecute Dame, but because people like Damemo, people like Abronyamo, people like the national organizer of MPP Mustafa Salamo Tumu, those guys omake candidates for enu oma wonu say sikumu pa ba say NDC aban esimbeka no ending. And that is why we wait any authority to do counter. What kind of moral authority? And I was say, sankwa counter of adia yen na yen say why?
Obi na acquire counter petition, but obviously
no certainly. Exactly. Now commander, that's you are right. Why you ma uba mu kura jami? Nti me no a make bam kai kire wo kura de. One can ye kura. You ma wo me da. Wo hanya no when na shechiri. Wo counter for den. Wo counter den. Oni pa ko no hia na pa ne den. Enti the bottom line is this. Nia eye owura Japa eka no. Me as long as say metimi ehunu bie na metimi atibie no enye say bia me chama sen aduasem na makase me no ana eko but no kura kwan so say there is evidence enough to prove say me Japa eka na no kura ena wenya asem a ye kato damiso we asem a Ghana fo nyina ehunu bie enough grounds so me want to say that kind of counter petition or counter whatever no media ubi samia me hunu so hye obi achi ma oye no nkosi aga NDC from Nancy from commander ye ken sem we nyina na se atwa kwakohwe baby no na nkamia kwa esa se ensem de topono so a ne wawa na basa ne sre emum enam na nkasa ne bi agya ho my okay, let me be careful, but this government, I'm sorry, juma papa but oman hwe ya enema baako mienu bi ebe clean adwuma no mienu nyina.
Yeah.
In terms of CD appreciation against the dollar, yes, call me. In terms of say aben biaba na in a space of just 5 months, yet me acti petrol so, yes, call me. In terms of say
you drew single digit.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, inflation is now 9% or
meanwhile, inflation about 23.5%. In fact, in 2022, 54%
for the first time.
For the first time in the history of our country. Olakai, is it 2009, 2010? And inflation hit a single-digit inflation under Professor Mills.
Yes.
It is a abandonment to me about power. Now in a space of 9 months, Sabine Timasia hit a single-digit inflation. It's obvious that Abine ye baby. But you see, Abai went here, say, and a track make us say, Yama criminals are emboldened to challenge what is even against them.
Yeah.
People like that want me criminals because we are attorney general.
Yes, I will only did a demonstration.
Unum says Samia Oku assembly by na mentia say eti na Kwame challenging me on Samia Oku's matter. I was like, Kwame, me shut down tears. Then until the fourth estate
report
that what they will be back.
Oh, okay.
Or the fourth estate for me back over. Eti fourth estate guy no. When I pushed him, when he explained, and I got to understand, say, sir, indeed, sir, 4 pillars no. Samia Oku ejina so ekase omo ebua corporate social responsibilities in area of agudi, which is sports, in area of art, which is ebia enyumtuo anase sinika, in area of health, accommodating some any ehumesuano. Some pillars it was created away from the very actor establishing goodwill na yabua in terms of corporate social responsibilities. It's a question ya emra. Na emra ne say yemfa sikai emwa ebia otuda akone kwame kwachi. Esan say sebi mpanyifo anim entesa but one e hiafo. Afei na kwamna Bobie Ansah akotena baabi say we see you on the board. I decided say e wom say emra ne say yemfa sika ne mo otuda akone kwame kwachi. Na emomu ye wo party any yima bi wo hono a omunya hiafo
party a wanya ne ho but because you say adekodi a wo koye no in line with the position of the board, which is inclined to the 4 areas in T. And this is clear misapplication of funds. And over reading Auditor General Reporter, because of misapplication of funds, yes, we use Kano, but and that is the case of Samia Oku. How can you give African Prosperity Network Gabi Otri Dako that sum of money? How? What be our bonny bread? We are what ain't it? As some names as you. Oh, Bishop Siaka or Jimmy. 1 2 say, Kwame D. A Karachi Bahanamwa. What be explaining them? Asano down not say. No, it doesn't make sense. One man, look, yeah, Independence Day celebration. You will see car or mine car. Beyond this, what's in ye sika 350,000 cities. Under the then chief of staff, Mami Fremo Pare, say on famwa a year celebrations. How? You sika at one that. So this is pure criminality. But only more problem with the Samia Oku I know. More sure say sika no call more.
Say ekwa Samiho.
Says Kano or Castle Disbezi and call those institutions now all Kano.
As I come home, man, Kaison Babonti. Basing the Gabi Mabontin say a man ho. Basing the Fremo Pare Accra100.5FM. And for all boom doing now be Accra100.5FM. But
because I've heard a conversation somewhere within the MPP hierarchies now omo mbubo omudino emumienu a complain ama MPP mpenimfo say omo receive
we complain ben ye dia to so say amount sika na wonje ye nya bonte na oba uko complain
no so unim party structures dey make actually and say nempedi
but MPP structures room commander asem na okay MPP and the structure. You are talking about structures in current MPP. Anna, this is some year count.
A water form.
That be other from flats. Edda from cry, say full and kan. Edda from what the age maybe.
Full and kan.
So the age maybe are not that from. Why you the answer you are confused when you NDC, and National Democratic Congress Assembly you can new patriotic party assembly. Let me tell one of the tapes I've watched here Jacko and he says I'm not here there is fine because I'm not can answer. No. And now okasa about the structures of MPP
MPP Nyansafoɔ no. Akomia.
Yes, Nana Akomia.
Boakye Jaako.
Yes.
Adenimo. Dambotwe.
Dambotwe so wajai. Also movement for
so abre. Na mamefa Jombo Odum ka ho.
Jombo de former secretary
JB.
Bonu we unity no ama na yi no ho ayi kakra. Boakye Jaako unity for chairmanship no.
So no so be chairmanship.
Ama
na make no well but we omkasa as nyansa kakra.
Ewum. Oba secretary no kra asa o mudi kakra MPP secretary no kakra or could be also why just manipulating no
could idea so deny a dormant no mo twi say akasa
manipulating no ba so mudi
manipulation
sa no te
mu ankasa
mu budu mu
any the whole Ghana general secretary
no
say NDC or say MPP could be any general secretary say party form faninya fees na general secretary ka say yankwa blekuma na party supporters
say yankwa
blekuma ampa no mo ko
ankosi hwe nso yansanhwe obi a enti na we can structures na we nwanwa no but don't confuse yourself NDC assembly
waka say Jimmy Muzuma kan kwase asem
the one kind na ede
era Patrick Boama obi abo Patrick Boama
no Patrick Boama
best
who follow ministers no your form is appointment committee. I think the appointment committee me kakonya metisui one of the few MPP MPC this nyansa sent throughout
Patrick Boama there
minim guy me share that so nyansa sent
so omo de MPP for the party ni ma Patrick Boama
no so peden
Boakye Jaako Akomia no ma
MPP never see amba
NDC for benya problem
MPP never see amba
so omo jai party ma sa ankrofo we no ma na omo transfer so omo strategize NDC benya problem
but then too much of a problem NDC benya problem yes but then too much of a problem
yes too much but then again Bema NDC are waking up
because no am some da
we are rough kit we are some crofon be found but it's obvious as Abia Okusi obefa no wedi
na is commander
it's obvious
menim say I think Sir President Mahama you wadamfo
no
papa me okay ni die kwan so e say kan oyo papa ni die kwan so
papa
me pa cho
enya say bia o man ni papa unim say Rajo Mahama
yes
in fact ono Kobi Fiagbe
Kobi
any Sebulati
yes
omo na de me ba
uncle Bevulu wife
omo na de me ba NDC omo na de me ba NDC
na MPP ni
na Asantuma Mponi uja hefa na mewa
okay say de ye gina mu entin
Asantuma Mponi de hefa ya de ye friend by default
I say de achim fonti
ya wo wani ti ya no
de do ashim
the first kasa betini MPP kasa
frame ka chem say what is me person me ko join the microphone me ko hwa hwem ready me ko hwa hwem ba na so from Akwaba oso hu dem simia so hu so a fine boy am so until we find boys in we could join the party we and I'm offer I just me could join the party be na ebomu sisi a position no emwa oman no it means say party obeso akere say bi mpanifo ani mu say bi enyansa phone to any NDC but today commander no say
there you
and I catch for the
hold on unim bibia answer MPP Jimmy ya che na ne ehui wo mu di Jimmy ni free Gokus no GCC one wo mu de te wo mu kurupi na Jimmy ni jina but you see wo mu Jimmy ni ya hu ne ntem
okay
ye generation ni sorry jina say yam ton kwase asem sa Jimmy no amu Jimmy no a ya hwe mu din no ana omai so exposed anya se no mu nyansa o mami ka say okay it's never true say MPP for school chain NDC
currently
Messing currently.
You are talking about Tete.
Go back. Master, when you are those days you are talking about PV Obenum. You are talking about Kwesibokenum. You are talking about your friend is Kwampe Pranum, Victor Salomenum, and then I say, Bobo MVP Sata, they don't tell me. But Chikata, the late Chikata,
not even current Chikata.
Massa,
current
Chikata. And today, which let me at the cry, MVP for Sata.
I think it's and me patrol with team here. This is devoid of tribalism, but I think it's the mechanism in MPP, a projecting MPP. I can find wedding. No, it's me who say.
My main policy the
policy mommy.
On say Asantefo in branding.
Yes. Branding.
Asantefo in branding. Omunim say they see branding ade. Enti so omo de ba ko a
enya kura a be branding abato.
Me dohor. Yeah. Betimi a branding na ma wa hu.
That's right.
NDC for nye keen even na say kura na stand up adaroma o events. Said the almost see
restructure
organizing events we stand up with the new style be about NDC which is good but human say the branding pagini so on say I before is for sorry Evers not I before
Evers
I no
a certain tribe
Evers no I no there is a history behind it some me worry Ever so they told me I know until my sorry
okay
the Evers the Nothingness Gadangbe the gas also it's how components when and a dos NDC naturally omu nipa they don't know how to brag ube siese no was kapa why we are Ekroma mimi ni mobia owo sika che kwa me despite no ya o yesem ni I'm not even talking about Ibrahim Mahama mini mobi okroma owo sika amin pa che kwa me despite
no ni pekra
but the point is yani ya we ya branding because of the business aspect yana nanum epi business into ya wo de saa niema no ehyew nti udru kayetia odi agora obi betumi atonshu ama se ibuku
odebebu
o meso beto
na yenyomo na yesamba cycle ne yesande abu
o fina samna there be what Nigeria voice na say your friends say semna na ton say phone so yi so start free kuma say
asaba na me try say some here na yesamba say ba commander yemmo wabaso wa on say o kan nyina utwa kohwe say emabru na abasise ne nimyansa it did not happen like magic.
No,
it happened because consistently certain wisdom was forged into the minds of these people. Citizen show now Brunizano. Oh dear, for when you call 7 years back, Ghanaians were timid. I'm not saying we have never had the likes of Fly Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. Afibia no Musa. Ready to me ni pakesi BP almost every time. But cast your mind back 7 years coming. For a kind of generation, whether on social media, whether on radio, whether on TV, etimi sorry brand say masa untimi infa said with no disrespect to penny for opening me nyansa nyansa. And it's because people like you started talking. When men were silent, people like you got out. I can't correct to me. Now, let me say this. My former station, for instance, Vision 1 FM. Oh, now me come again. Citizens show the same you. Kwame Debi amen country. Mona masani. Oh, Mr. Kwame Kanjoda. Oh, now me come again. But you see, citizens show a kind of flair. Citizens show a kind of direction. Now citizens show one course direction. And me fans no omo follow citizenship. Omo de timisha to be some come into the host. Show a team for one broke us as a whole. Make say nipa ya do say, but we can put this so we because what set a certain tone for a certain generation to pick up. And ama emabrudu do one we say no. See a particular rhythm a bebwan am brand, and that has caused all those changes that you see. enunti na ewre mfini wakan on this damning and all those counter petition etwa akwakohwe NDC amemeka se NDC for akomanu atum bebre enunti omo de se mo se de bia mo press briefing yekoka no mubuafu etwa se ye kan no krekere NDC aban mo mubufu to do the right thing than say beka anu atum na NDC for opposition. These people have been emboldened because NDC from penifo bebre have been silent on thieves, on criminals in this country.
When you say and I don't know be dim come on raise asema wo kan ya and I'm so almost say a process in
process bay
we must many part
process bay
we must many part or say though they voted democratically for a democratic leadership,
yes,
but not Ghana for any ready say your mama should behave democratically.
Debbie,
not Ghana for ready say even if you not try MPP from Koguma,
yes,
Ubia Kuma Betoni because they know no
fantastic.
It is so visible,
fantastic.
Everybody sees it,
fantastic.
I mean, it is so glaring that and Koko to say it make a dance. Ghana for here dancing over the second of Furata say, Yavani Yako,
dancing in Yadi.
What do you call the kind of Furata could not call tired day? I day, and guess I die a winnie Yanuano, Canajuano, why you know? Not straight kind of Furata in the only say, anybody catch him say, and Ghana for M4 to John Muhammad da.
Commander, Mamika
because they were looking for a set fine, some say military rule. Yen ya yantwe ehun firi ho so yentimi enkofra soja for so meje o man no a ye de be ma ba ye de ma wa ye ni military star
commander one ma dwene aye ba ko na minim se na nanoma honhom na ekasa wie unni dia
ka kire
asema na me pese me ka no e bi na watin minim se na obo oti wanwumi na fefe na nanoma ye adwuma because me can be bia say me can me chie me hu da say se nye John Mahama ana na Ghana fo soja fo Adria nom de many atwa and can be a military takeover in this country. I'm telling you.
You understand the support.
There would have been a military takeover.
Because Obi should not be walking around.
People think that we are talking too much. Commander, another you're saying, is it facts? I know John Mahama will not fail. But I'm telling my country, if this government of NDC fails, Ghanaians will lose outright interest in democracy.
Because now with Ghanaians, no MPP in your option.
And yes, and two men this is because they say I told my money be amuso to me and chiwamo engumu. What next?
Say you do some point in the dia otu. You nyina say you nim dia.
I said the 9 months in you.
Yeah, no make it's still early.
Commander Jaisa.
No, the reason why they can say almost say commander remember almost say a processes almost say a process right
I say
and let's assume say yes the almost cannot sanity but you see ebufuo ewiabo we dem pay for her remember monfanche me ebufuo etiset etam
o say
me say ebufuo etiset etam
baby Mike ni hanu Mike ni
I don't me fa there so na ebobo free we yamwa na pi me say me can say we enemy after December after next year by June say John Mahama hwe ya oso man nyi
commander
by next year June because what we are seeing is unfortunate say eya no mo say omonkola no so hunu bi but the you know any de kontokwaji to me ma wo mo because the things we will see in the night
don't see it
by June
ababi transformant
na say John Mahama no ma hwe ya oso man no say be Jeffrey
commander June wa.
Oh, you see, we are talking to people.
No, but you see, I like your sense of responsibility.
Yes,
as a senior journalist.
Yes,
senior
yes,
but but you must push them. Commander, Obianti min train June. Obian one will be Commander. If the case is in the door, you have a case me assign. You do we are near self another case. Why do you take plethora of cases?
They say.
Na Attorney General ba. Listed cases bebre. Yen prosecute obia. 82 cases. Who dealing with who dealing here? Now for what fact kenoforiata. What dealing no now dey.
Otu. Yet to Kroma. Ena ayi jasi question.
Ayen.
Ye do baby. I'm catch say every day.
Every day no court. Ye Kroma.
Every day.
Say no court.
Na me say adajo mama no mbeka say. On so mu did 3 cases to Ghana for no aduane mra judges no. Ye you go tom mo ani tunku sa.
Me dem salaries na beche.
Me dia yabomu e dia kɔ. Na judges mu de mu ni di. Na mun nyankrofo we ho adwuma maye.
But I think say me wrap up. I think you say ye penyin fo no bebre ho no mo a. Sabi and some kind of I know can acquire a Spanish haban. You can send a banyansa phone. But you see, a buying we you can't see a bossy a kahon ya dear buying buy. You share my buying wing position because of a Jumapa ban Yashasi. It's a kind of crash room. Nancy a 2 Obama Mahama. Yes, or maybe or my wedding. Or Muncha Cron for Bakum, you been to Keke. Near Fagan and Shomosa forever.
Thank you. Live at 100.5. So I was just waiting for my studio guest. Honorable Ansah Thompson and Honorable Safoji. After now, what na semana asset kakra. Make I will say a visiting associate studio guest. Miami National Chairman PNC, Mr. Awingobit, a friend, a brother, Asake Awingobit, a friend and a brother. But we have a special one-on-one with Honorable Kwabena Safoji. Yes. Then we will have Ansah Thompson to enter. Oh, unim this way so no say if you wan ka ko mu abu.
Ah, ma, usaka onyo manana.
Anio, sisia na rider na de buy. Send in momo.
Yo, star one.
Ah, Paco. Any smartphone na we use. For momo app ni tuane.
Ah, adian app.
Hey, enye una so ye millennium o se millennia. Na woni momo app no. Oh, millennium fo ya anya de kra. For app ni di juma. Na se wo di juma e kontem na ho bambo so wo mu.
Beka enkofuku a wodi bomo app ni di juma biara dem. Tia wuje di ni a open na 7 no ka. Tia.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At this 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, I'd like to speak about Africa's role in the future of this organization. However, it's impossible to do that without first considering the collective role that Africa played in its founding, which was small and relatively insignificant. Of the 51 member states involved in the founding of the United Nations in 1945, only 4 were African: Egypt, Ethiopia, Liberia, and South Africa. It is important to point out that the United Nations came into being in the aftermath of World War II because of the inability of its predecessor, the League of Nations, to avert a large-scale global conflict, which had been its guiding purpose when it was founded in 1920 at the end of the First World War. Out of the 42 founding member states of the League of Nations, only 3 were African: Liberia, the Union of South Africa, and Ethiopia. Egypt was to join later in 1937. Africa's overall participation in the organization's founding was minimal and relatively unimportant. That's because before all the other talks and meetings, representatives from a group of 14 nations gathered in Berlin for a series of discussions that began in 1884 and which led to the partitioning and formal colonization of the African continent, which is also called the Scramble for Africa. It has famously been written that past is prologue. Well, in the past, the majority of the 54 nations that now comprise Africa were never offered a seat at the table where plans for a new world order were being drawn. But, Madam President, as fate would have it, the tables are turning, and Africa's role in the authorship of whatever is yet to come for this world is going to be huge, and it will be consequential. According to this organization's own projections, by the year 2050, more than 25% of the world's population is expected to come from the African continent. Additionally, by 2050, 1/3 of all young people aged between 15 to 24 will be residing on the African continent. So you see, the future of this world is African. Allow me to say this once again a little louder for those of you in the back. The future is African. Already today, Africa is a catalyst for human potential and development, as well as for economic reform and ecological stability. Africa is a catalyst for systemic change. If this reality, which is fact-based and straightforward, seems provocative or unsettling, perhaps it's because you are viewing it through the lens of centuries of filters, colonialism and imperialism, and the resulting implicit bias. Maybe you are unaware of the resilience of African nations or their remarkable ability to make a strong comeback just when you think it's safe to count them out. That is what is happening right now in my own country, Ghana. Our constitution limits leaders to 2 4-year terms. In January, I was sworn in for a second term, which, let me point out, was non-consecutive with my first term. Our currency, the Ghana cedi, was rapidly depreciating, faced with rising inflation, a huge debt burden, and low morale amongst our citizens. My new administration settled down quickly and embarked on an ambitious program of comprehensive transformation designed to restructure Ghana's economic foundation and enhance our competitive standing globally. We refer to this process of recalibration as our reset agenda. In just 8 months, we have achieved significant reduction in inflation from 23.8% in December 2024 to 11.5% in August 2025, restoring price stability for our citizens. Additionally, our currency, the Ghana cedi, has appreciated considerably against other currencies, with Bloomberg reporting it as the best performing currency in the world at one point. Our improved sovereign credit rating reflects increasing investor confidence in our economy. And our 24-hour economy initiative promises to transform our economy. And there's a renewed willingness amongst our people to trust that their elected officials have Ghana's interests at heart and that we're progressing together. Madam President, I believe that in honor of this milestone celebration, the United Nations should also embark on a process of serious recalibration and establish its own reset agenda. Since the organization's founding, the number of UN member nations has nearly quadrupled. And quite frankly, it is not the same world that it was back then when the UN was formed. I mentioned earlier that I began my second non-consecutive term as president this past January. My first term ended in January 2017. In that span of time, 8 years, the world has changed with such ferocity. My first days in office after my return felt as though I had just awakened from a Rip Van Winkle-style sleep. Now, no, that was only after 8 years. Imagine then what it will be like after 80 years since the founding of the United Nations. In 1945, the sun had not yet set on the largest empire in history. The most common mode of international travel was by sea. The personal computer had not been invented, let alone made portable. And television, a new convenience, was still in its infancy, albeit in black and white color. Relations between the US and the Soviet Union were turning frosty, with Winston Churchill declaring that an iron curtain has descended across the European continent. Fast track 80 years on. In today's world, hundreds of thousands of commercial flights take off and land every day. Libraries have been digitized so that volumes of literature can exist on a small device, small enough to fit inside your pocket.
Prekope ene obi busama se mi se na ede na mamponfon kwa me and Sada Juma because the person Nipa no Busabro Mensa Thompson from Asantuma Ponsuta. Now, so ya was Mensa Thompson in Suta.
First time I'm meeting
Ponsuta.
Yes, we is a for league.
I'm telling you. Now, only Miss Magna Maso, Nipa no Kumase. Now, me post on Facebook, and you send me back. Say, Ade, Mummy and Sai move on one issue, Ade. And I'm say, no, it's not Mampongwana. Let me see, Magna Maso, be Nimida. But what goes on in
the first time I'm meeting.
Mamponsita.
Okay.
So, me can was say, Honorable Alex Kweku Asafweji, a registrar for Ghana Scholarship Secretariat. Honorable Akwaba.
Mejo so Kwabena.
Boko de.
Oh, nyamada.
Who were dinner?
And the last time I'm a Bahana, we discussing about some few challenges. Ghana for being students are no more person get demonstration or the various home offices were broaching. Nina yesena yedeka omo ahuchiri me no cre. But me catch us at time na eguso aye audit ni validation yenwie. Afi na ewie just one aspect of it. On ade bia me copy so aye friend short courses. Na short courses no enum eno no ho nsem kra no Kwabena. Bubuja Ansah na me no ka say be the main regular non-bilateral scholarship no so yeguso Memphis others nti discoveries kakraba na hu be hia say ba bia chekire esuma fidie hwan ba bia chekire abo na hwan esane so was me san ba fie na me be ma atifo ene ahwefo hu dia kwakosi any the ntia scholarship secretariat over the years maybe we could call for say scrap it because no more feel say it has outlived its usefulness. Nemu may have been papa so na Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah edit na the pabonifu be sometimes ya nebi mu kraka so yemfa bill bimra yemfa mra bimra Ghana Law School to mra bia mark no but unya ni papa na de ne to ano as director nko ana so ye ni papa no person ya de papa obeya de papa ye constitution 1992 ewo ye ma security of tenure for omo the position be to say EC commissioners any Supreme Court judges ba ukonya nipa oye nipa boni ni te say Kufuado a kwan obefa so obechinchim ra no kra obechinchim asan what ase so me feel say a normal p no boils down to nipa no a ye de dibre ye den shenensa any ni su any the person ye de ma Ghana. That is how I see that.
Sembranta
is up when you brabron na no to up person ye bibi ma o man ha. Omo ye normal kese ho man na yemra na she omo. Enyamra. It's just that sense of patriotism.
Yeah.
Say me bia say me man o man Ghana. Ena ye di bia we na hye me santi kakra metimi aye de ama o man Ghana o chena bi mini ho a ye bebo me din akai we. It's a principle very simple. Kwabena simple way na adentina yet utu kwan na kwa America obi asinifie no the American flag na sen enu
so emre bia nchechire
ba o kire say odo ne man boni be ka to God bless America de obeka bia masa o America ni a odo America and asa say what ma say ba Ghana hayetia your sense of patriotism na nkasa abafom to be share taxi driver no ono the American flag na si taxi ni opa ni bi phone lines tum sisi say yen sample opinion say person ke ton Ghana ni chase can
hey obedi jajai oh yeah me am evaluation no
and that is how sad yaba bedu am feel say yen na o say etimi inspire hope anything na me no ya adwen say Ghana for empeku ditabio nti yese president Mahama emiso mayen na ensesan ya hwehwe free resantene no onfanye den onfamra maybe dem wo gidie pa say obeye just a matter of time chede but kakra bia me hu no last week and this week
I see
and microphobia ma say asoso mumu no kire say we are on course na obia so obeye akwansi obeba beye blockade ama president minim so say obeyi na free ho.
Are you sure?
Oh, what Kwabena na so ni papa ne chene. O bisa me are you sure no? Shatawale friend smiling mafia. Who ni me chene?
E bia no asesa.
Oh, say sign. Me hu ade bi when we lost 2016 elections that time you also getting close kakra in 2018-2019. And there was a conversation pejanity hesro was in it as no usunity one country. Made from that day I knew that Joma man for no and you no abuse. Trust me. Many dear kakra we cry me. If I tell you because civil servants are involved, I don't want to put their names out there. But me home me arrest here cry I bear 7. Unto the Otaba holding. Wow. And I'm working closely with the NIB. The last time an MP was even put on a stop list for Kutukai channel.
Really?
Oh, Kwabena me wouldn't
anyway, so the conversation today is so simple. We are talking to the registrar from Ghana Scholarship Secretariat. Then we have the deputy CEO for Exchange Commission. So you'll be dealing with the Ghana Scholarship Secretariat. Mami Musa, State Bay Nana Secretariat Office no ewo eya okotoso. Tell us. Me ba it said the media me ba fi me be kan no me be toka na question ba ko me busa ni say minim say afibia ye ma agency bia budget. Of course we nya obi bia na be adequate budget on say be kan bia na be adequate, but some form of monies are given into then na eka kese satini ebe da ho. So me share books ni be bi wa afibi wa 300 million afibi 2 something when you in Ghana cities. Okay. Of course, scholarship secretariat situation is peculiar because of foreign exchange fluctuations. On say, Yama me CD 7 franco fees, but I'm paying it in foreign currency, be a euro, be a dollar, be a pound. It is a saka be a meaning say manya deficit. And no one of the factors. But then, me discovery na me ko PA books be so na mu say Oma running a program be with Crown Agents UK. And no your short courses. It 2 weeks. Na yedo connect yedo aba. Short courses in principle mean na me ka say bad. Me say na mitimi din kita ho bi obadi. Na me feel say manya short course bi a ebetimi aboa ma yetimi aye on hands skill development bi ebe boa ma buna. Why not? But okofa short courses be to say developing future leaders. Course no.
Bakudi na mabachiro no. Developing future leaders. Building effective teams. Enti say minim say na say obi ba fie ha na ya spend the minimum expenditure on one person was £2,000 for tuition, 1,200 as stipend and a return air ticket.
£2,000
for tuition, £1,200 as stipend and a return air ticket.
Hey.
Now wakwa ye adia your friend o dey converting o dey find £3,500 now converting. Now wakwa ye 2 weeks program aba oba ya de nikita na we say developing future leaders inti say oba class media say oba pa adwuma minim so be develop say do agbongo so be develop Kwabena Bobie Ansah say kwam kwachi no be minim
anti your microphone be dem promo developing future leaders.
Developing future leaders aba
no certificate.
I mean, developing future leaders and why they eco CV.
Hey,
what's it?
Then, almost our back could be almost building effective teams in the same year, of course, Security and Exchanges Commissioner. So, the Perjuma receiving the and the buyer will be developing Miniam and Thompson. So, I think not be effective teams or sec. It just doesn't make sense. Now, Kwabena, Adia Mesa discover and say, Omanya no kwa keke. Utim se na ite se sika bi da baabi yemfa kwan bi so skin na sika ni medi nipa bi botum. So o hwe example we a yema nipa ba ko scholarship a na ya san fa ne yire ni afa ne ma na ye de o maka ho as dependent na nye ho ana eso ne ya say allocate stipend you bet me as a friend allowance e dia man na yire separate ne man so me miensa obi abenya bi separate ye wia ya san so atwa take it ama enkwala no mu bia ene ne yire ene ono amu ne de omukọ
me pa cho category of scholarship be no
me da minimum dia minimum and the standard practice when it comes to scholarship regimes.
Yes.
When we say dependence in the context of scholarships, it has to do with the immigration policy of the host countries. For example, UK allow dependents. Me mame gifty. Me mame last born no. Me kunu nya scholarship kusunya de already. And was sending no invitation. And or the visa or joining Nikun. So it has to do with the immigration law. Say country now mission there also as a beneficiary, Does their immigration law allow me say make me dependence joining me and clear?
Yes.
Now, say question answer yes, sir. It is not government's business.
Say you on a
so and my example say memo nia ketwa gift no ni kunu no an sending a personal invitation facilitating with bank statements bibia ema okoje ne visa joining ni kunu you don't get the picture.
I get you straight.
So me will say or grant interview be or baby say a minimum allowed. Nobody has Obianka said that is not in contention.
Who granted that
now benya wan Kingsley Ajiman. What I say allowed. Nobody is contesting say allowed. But what I say it has to do with the immigration law. In your country be wa mensa Thompson in scholarships here so kusia de or Ebiana country no permitting say as a scholarship beneficiary no obey invite you bia. Say what I say.
Yes,
and a country should be permitted say what you know bet me man during your period of study. They make us what
so immigration law they be determined
and they be determined so ebia ya ni UK for ewo ayonkofo bia dia man for ko ha say ni pa no person obefa na yire and our person obefa na ban must be the person's personal business
and you Ghana by business
and yeah there say Mensa Thompson akwa tena ba bi so ye PhD or London now what they know because winter into your pay ne nkantima dia kan ho hia how is that John Mohammed's business
Intimate your
business.
I want you.
Now, dear ya woman say, Ofo be mammy can deal with that lady way. Ofo be to say, give to your worry. Now, me person me prove it some didn't have been born in the territory.
Give to your worry, son.
Give to your worry, son.
NSS give to your worry.
Yes, your man kunu. Peter Mensa ni kunu your friend Peter Mensa your man scholarship so nkusua onkoye LLM or Brunel all corona dey gift your worry so let me read the award letter here. So I say we confirm that Peter Mensa has been awarded a financial scholarship by the Ghana Scholarship Secretariat to study LLM at Brunel University, London, United Kingdom, which commenced January 2022. The scholarship covers Peter Mensa and his dependent listed above, and it covers all the tuition fees of £17,875,000 and living expenses of £16,008. It also covers his dependent, gifty, a fear or what remains and spouse, living expenses of £8,160. And this cannot be true because Mensa Gift Owari at the time was a deputy director in charge of national service and couldn't have left the shores of Ghana to join her husband as a dependent during the period of study.
So meaning that meaning
that what you say
no
check this large man person say or the adwen papa na no person dey boa man for me kire say oboa purely because of other motives because yet oko gender ministry now oko national development planning commissioner research ayewo leap households more than 300,000 in Ghana. It is a person boa only be for ankasa you target households no
And you definitely get the data.
You have the data. You may oko Upper West a few women in Yawo, Hanewo, oko Central Region, Hanewo, oko. Then you target these people. Now, can you buy a list? You are money, your intention were good. But if you are your appointee, edgy pay, a war security, edgy V8, a bet in your TSS way times 5. Or the not can you who say, or it depend on knowing, say, Metier, me, but them took a chief of staff approve. So there is no way Gifty can leave the source of Ghana and abandon the job as a deputy director at NSS. But to go and stay in UK.
But more running audit tracking such good.
What I say? A typical case that say, sir, excuse no, the my say no person boa Ghana for no boni be na wa ye no. I am proving it to him say oboa. Ko opo bi aboa na ye onko for mu hia moa ankaza buza wi go bi to be kire.
Yes.
What I say? Our money be school fees 2,000 kroner ntia. Ofa bi ohoma to this year. Edum kwa 1,000 they cannot afford. And to committee 17,875,000 pounds on one person as the husband. Then the stipend alone 16,000. And another 8,000 on gift your wallet.
So independent.
And ya no kwa ye wi to take it ama gift your wallet asan to take it ama nyukunu no wa modi akọ at the expense of government.
Yes, sir.
After san hwa ha.
No, honorable situation akoto yero no.
The amako enti sika no a yesi ya critica 40 million pounds na wo UK no. After wo hu ba bi afa.
Tina na menu first day na mpese obeka bibia na wa hold on.
Because now for ya sha ase say be hwem.
Oh, then I'm sorry.
You na enti obi bottom ayema. But government of Ghana deka. You not get the picture. Good. After san hwa ha. We so your friend no Bernard Champion Chum or say we confirm that Bernard Champion Chum has been awarded financial scholarship by Ghana Scholarship Secretariat for study PhD in construction management at the University of Reading, United Kingdom. The other main things here, the scholarship covers Bernard Champion Chum and his dependents listed above, and it covers all tuition fees of £19,330, living expenses of £12,180.